All right, ready to dive into some serious literature? Today we're tackling Great Expectations by Charles Dickens.
Oh, yeah, Dickens. Still relevant after all these years.
Exactly. You know how it is with classics, though.
Mm.
So many pages, so little.
Time.
Yeah. But don't worry, we've got this. We're focusing on key excerpts and dialogue, so you get right to the good stuff. No need to wade through all 600 plus pages.
And this is where the deep dive format really shines, honestly. I mean, Great Expectations is timeless for a reason, right? Ambition, guilt, love, that whole chase for social status. It's like Dickens wrote it for us today.
It's uncanny. But for those who haven't cracked it open recently, let's set the scene. Think gloomy marshes, bone-chilling cold. Young Pip runs into a terrifying escaped convict.
Ah, yes, our introduction to Abel Magwitch. This isn't just some random encounter. This dude's going to become a huge force in Pip's life. Dickens was a master at showing how brutal social injustice could be, and Magwitch is like the embodiment of that.
And the way Dickens describes it, I wish I was a frog or a eel, Magwitch says. Freezing out there in the marshes, you can practically feel the chill, right?
Oh, absolutely. Dickens throws you right into it. And that desperation in Magwitch's voice. Foreshadowing, my friend. Pip's going to face some tough choices later on, the kind we all struggle with, when ambition and morality clash.
And speaking of clashes, let's jump from those marshes to a completely different world. Miss Havisham's. Talk about a contrast. Satis House, this grand but decaying mansion frozen in time. And Miss Havisham, still in her faded wedding dress, clinging to the past.
Like stepping into some gothic fairy tale gone wrong. Dickens piles on the sensory details, stopped clocks, that rotting wedding feast, creepy but effective, gets under your skin.
And then there's Estella, beautiful but cold as ice, trained by Miss Havisham to break hearts. Recipe for disaster much.
Totally. Estella becomes the symbol of love Pip can't have, and how she treats him, all those cutting remarks about his background. Pure Miss Havisham, that's the twisted social superiority she drilled into Estella.
And here's where it gets really interesting, right? Pip starts to believe it. He thinks, I was too coarse and common, like he needs to be totally remade. All for Estella's approval, it seems.
Sad, isn't it? That internalized shame. Dickens is showing us how powerful those feelings are. Pip's fixated on becoming a gentleman, but at what cost? We all chase external validation sometimes, but when do we lose ourselves in the process? Something to think about.
For sure. And speaking of cost, let's talk about how Pip's sudden fortune plays into this. Out of nowhere, he goes from blacksmith's apprentice to, well, someone with great expectations.
And we have no idea where it comes from. At this point, it's a mystery even to Pip. But Dickens uses that mystery brilliantly, doesn't he? That secret benefactor ups the suspense and shows how alluring wealth can be, how it twists your desires.
Suddenly he's whisked away to London becoming a gentleman. Or is he? I mean, he's spending tons still chasing Estella and forgetting about Joe and his roots.
Classic Dickens again, holding up a mirror to society. Is Pip actually happy? Or is this pursuit of status corrupting him?
And then, bam, curveball, Magwitch, the convict, returns. But he's not just back, he drops a bomb.
He's the secret benefactor, the one who made Pip a gentleman.
Pip is horrified. Everything he thought he knew, those grand ideas about being a gentleman, gone.
And that's where Dickens really gets us thinking. Would we react any differently? It challenges our prejudices, makes us question what really defines a gentleman. Is it birthright or something more?
Talk about a reality check for Pip, right?
Mm-hmm.
London life suddenly lost its shine.
Totally. It's like all those fancy clothes and dinners mean nothing now. He's wrestling with guilt, shame, the works.
And he's got Magwitch to worry about now, too. Being back in England puts Magwitch in danger.
Dickens doesn't go easy on him, does he? It's like he's saying, okay, you want to be a gentleman? Let's see what you're made of.
The ultimate test.
Yeah.
And the excerpts we're looking at now, Pip trying to help Magwitch escape. Talk about tense. They're trying to flee London by river, and Dickens makes you feel the danger.
There's this one line, from me too, a veil seemed to be drawn, and I felt strong and well. It's like, even with everything going wrong, Pip finds some inner strength.
Exactly. He's not hiding behind being a gentleman anymore.
Yeah.
This is different. This is Pip stepping up, even if it costs him everything. We've all had those moments, right? Where doing the right thing means going against the grain.
Totally. But doing the right thing can be risky, no doubt. And in Great Expectations, well, let's just say Dickens keeps it real. Things don't go as planned. Magwitch gets caught. And the way Dickens writes it, heartbreaking. I've seen my boy, and he can be a gentleman without me, Magwitch says, accepting his fate. Gets me every time.
It's rough. And while Pip's dealing with that, Things at Satis House are unraveling too. Miss Havisham still clinging to the past.
It all explodes, doesn't it? That fire she's obsessed with. The one representing her own pain, it consumes her, literally. Tragic, but also, like, there's this weird poetry to it in the
All
excerpts.
those years of bitterness manipulating everyone around her, it's like it finally caught up with her. Makes you think, what are we holding on to that's holding US back?
Big questions, right? And so relevant today when it's easy to get stuck in the past.
For sure. So we got Magwitch caught, Miss Havisham gone. What about Estella? After growing up with all that toxicity, can she even love someone?
That's the thing about Dickens. He makes you work for it. We see Estella marrying Drummle, who's awful for her, but the excerpts hint at something else, too. She admits she hurt Pip, that Miss Havisham twisted her. Makes you wonder, can she change? Can she connect with someone for real?
Change is tough, though, especially when it comes to love.
Ain't that the truth? And that brings us to the end of Great Expectations. And honestly, it's a bit of a head-scratcher. Years later, Pip and Estella meet again. They've both been through so much, shaped by Miss Havisham, by life. But what does it mean for them?
They're like two ships passing in the night, each carrying the weight of their past. Can they find peace? Connection? After all this time, last time on our Great Expectations deep dive, we left off with Pip and Estella meeting again after all those years,
And it's such a loaded encounter, right? I mean, they've both been through the ringer.
to say the least.
Miss Havisham's manipulation, the ups and downs of life, it's all left its mark on them.
So as we dig into this final act, the big question is, what becomes of them? Can they escape their pasts? Find happiness?
The million-dollar questions. And Dickens, being Dickens, doesn't exactly lay it all out for us.
He's the master of making you think.
Exactly. The excerpt we're looking at now, it's Pip and Estella walking through the ruins of Satis House. Super symbolic, right? The place where so much went wrong for both of them.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a graveyard of their former selves, haunted by what could have been.
And Dickens even describes it as cold, so lonely, so dreary all. You can practically feel the weight of the past closing in on them.
Totally. So what are we supposed to make of their final encounter? Is there hope for them? Or are they destined to repeat the patterns of the past?
Well, that's the thing about Dickens, isn't it? He loves to keep us guessing. Some people read that last line, "I saw no shadow of another parting from her," and see it as a glimmer of hope. Like, maybe, just maybe, they could have a future together.
Right, a fresh start. But on the other hand, it's pretty open-ended.
Exactly. It could just as easily mean that Pip's finally let go of those great expectations he had for their relationship.
He's accepting that things might not work out the way he always pictured.
And there's a certain peace in that, don't you think? Accepting what is, rather than clinging to what could have been.
Definitely. It's about breaking free from those illusions that have been driving him for so long.
And throughout the novel, Dickens has been chipping away at those illusions, one by one, the allure of social status, the idea of romantic love as Estella embodies it, the belief that we can outrun our pasts.
He's showing us that real fulfillment, real happiness, it comes from somewhere else entirely.
Absolutely. And for Pip, part of that realization comes from his reunion with Joe. Remember Joe, the kind, simple blacksmith, Pip's brother-in-law who loved him unconditionally.
The one he left behind in his pursuit of becoming a gentleman.
Exactly. But when Pip returns to Joe, humbled and seeking solace, their bond is as strong as ever.
It's like that saying, there's no place like home.
Exactly. It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable relationships are the ones we've had all along. The ones that have always been there, offering unwavering support and love no matter what.
And even though Pip doesn't end up staying in the village permanently, you can sense that he's changed. He's learned from his mistakes.
And that, my friend, is a powerful form of redemption. To recognize our flaws, to grow from our experiences, even the painful ones, that's what makes us human.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Great Expectations, what's a takeaway for us today? Why should we care about this story, this world that feels so far removed from our own?
Because at its core, Great Expectations is about universal truths. It's about the complexities of ambition and guilt, the allure of social status, the transformative power of love and forgiveness.
Those themes are as relevant today as they were in Dickens's time, right? We still grapple with them. We still see them playing out in our own lives and in the world around us.
Exactly. So as you go about your day, ask yourself, what are your great expectations? And are they leading you towards a life that is truly fulfilling?
A question worth pondering indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.